All right, welcome, welcome. If you are new here, I'm so glad you came to join us, and I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time. If you've been here before, you know I love seeing all your smiling faces, and it really is just the highlight of my week. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. So, Beth is going to talk about a really cool topic today. So, I'm going to let her introduce it and go from there. And then I'm going to go ahead and take off. It was great seeing everybody.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about the predictable power and using standardization for success in your firm. So, standardization is not just a method, it's an approach, and it empowers your firm to grow. It ensures consistent, high quality deliverability of services to your client. Structured framework doesn't need to be stiff and impersonal, and it really opens up the path for sustainable growth and innovation. So let's talk about the hero law firm. I'm sure we all know people who, while they do good things, overcomplicate things and then make them appear more heroic than they are. Let's make this more complex so it looks like I'm doing all of this more stuff. They add complexities to every process to elevate what they do. And this is not always intentional, by the way. But it is prevalent all over social media. If you ventured into the sourdough community, you know what I mean. It's crazy. It really is. Bread is not that complicated, trust me. So, a hero law firm relies on highly customized processes for each client, and that puts a profitability at risk. So now clients need to feel special, heard, supportive, but that doesn't mean you customize each experience with them. Over customization impacts your profitability. So this, when I was putting this together, I thought about a discussion that John and I had. I believe it was earlier this week, that Ford is revamping some of their showrooms and their dealerships. And they're taking away the desk and everything else, and they're putting in more like conversation spaces, living rooms. They're planning on closing deals on coffee tables, apparently. All of that, they're like changing that whole approach. And our discussion on that was that just seems really odd. But their plan is to customize each person's experience when they come in to buy a truck. And it's focusing on some high truck dealerships. Um, I It'll be interesting to see how that approach works because to me, they're going backwards. They're not standardizing. They're trying to make every single experience custom to that person, and that is going to impact their stuff. And beyond that, you know, if I'm going in to sign loan papers for $120,000, I really expect to be sitting at a desk, not on a couch, signing it on a coffee table. That just seems really odd to me, but we'll see how that plays out for them because they're actually switching that, and that just seems very odd. But yeah, as you take that over customization in there, how is that going to affect their productivity? Because now you're removing all of the standardization of what happens with that. So that'll be interesting to watch as that goes forward. So when everything is customized, you're constantly reinventing or customizing processes for each client, and that holds up a lot of things in your firm. If you need to write three custom paragraphs before you send each email, it impacts your ability to scale your firm. Your options for growth are then limited to hiring another person to write said 3 paragraphs, or find someone who writes faster. And yes, AI can assist with this, but firms that are doing this are even more unlikely to use that tool. And this leads to client dissatisfaction and loss of business because now I need to customize every email, and every email that I send now takes more time, and now I can't keep up. And now I'm not, now things are starting to fall through the cracks, and that my clients aren't satisfied. We don't want that to happen. And then oftentimes we have institutional knowledge that only a few people know. And it's really hard to train new people coming in. When you're adding new people to your office, um, and you don't have scalability when you're adding those new people because you're usually adding them at a time that you really need them. So you're trying to impart all of this institutional knowledge to them when everybody's busy. And when you don't have time to do that, that doesn't go well. Your new hires struggle. It leads to inconsistencies. They get frustrated and they don't stay. And then you need to do that with somebody else. And we see that a lot. Like that high turnover is generally from, I can't grasp all of this stuff and do all of this. There's no standards. I don't know what I'm doing every day until you get into that groove, and people don't stay long enough to get into that groove because it's frustrating. Um, and when you're constantly training new people, um, that makes it very difficult for them. And people aren't doing that intentionally for the most part. They're not. It's just because they need to impart all of this, and it's customized, and it's everything else. You're trying to make people think how you're thinking, and that doesn't work very well. So really, by standardizing that and having things built out, that really supports new people coming in. And I always use the thing of, what if you get hit by a bus? I said that the other day and didn't realize my chances of getting hit by a bus are very few. Um, but anyway, what if I get eaten by a bear? Who's going to step in and take care of those things? And that's really kind of where this is being able to have a standardized process that if something devastating does happen, um, that you can step in and do things. Today is actually a pretty good example of that because we do have a standardized process for this every Friday. And I just realized this in saying this. And with the shifting that we needed to do this week, with John not being here because he runs it all the time, do you know how easy it was for us to just step into this? Because we have a standardized process for that. So yeah, we are a living example of this week, oddly enough. That wasn't planned either, by the way. So customization really is a foundation for your, or standardization rather, is the foundation for your legal innovation. Anytime you can standardize a process in client interface, you can greatly reduce the risk and enhance the overall efficiency to the firm. So this is an approach that not only streamlines your workflows, but also allows you to scale and enhance your service and delivery without reducing that client experience and compromising the quality of your work. You can still make people hear you, feel heard, and feel that they are special to you without customizing every single portion. There is ways to do that in standardization. So let's look at a couple different ways. And the core benefits of the standardization of internal operations. Templates. Templates are an easy one because a lot of us already use templates. We're using them in drafting documents and various other things, pleading, estate planning documents, all that. If you've worked in a law firm before this was all available, you understand that it greatly improves the speed at which you're able to get documents out to people, and you don't need a whole team to prepare a set of documents for somebody. And now some of that can actually be outsourced because you standardize that. That also carries over to things like emails and things like that. Um, Now they don't need to be very stiff and impersonal to be a template. You can make templates very engaging, and that increases efficiency and allows everyone in your firm to be able to do more work in less time, which then allows you room for growth without compromising your client satisfaction and communication. And actually, in a lot of times, it can increase that a lot. It also gives you a safety net against errors. Anytime we add standardization, it reduces the chance of human errors. And that systematic approach makes sure you're compliant in every necessary step, which of course reduces the risk in a law firm. Being able to standardize what is said to clients and how information is presented to clients really greatly reduces that risk because now everyone is getting the same information. You don't have people trying to customize what they're saying and maybe give information that they shouldn't be giving, and crossing that line, especially with non-attorneys and attorneys. So the more you standardize, the more you can use tech to support you in the processes. You can't use technology to automate things if there's no routine to automate. When everything is customized and everything is special, you can't automate things and you can't use standard processes and templates and all of that to make that all work. And so technology needs standardization to be able to assist you. Otherwise, it's just a database and it's just um, a storage for the data. That's all it is. Every single time that you take sending a confirmation email from somebody and put it into technology, that just saved a minute or so of that person's time. And depending on how many meetings they're scheduling and all that, that could add up to hours. We all know that from looking at those numbers. And on our website, there is an automation calculator that can show you those numbers. And some of them are quite shocking. And yes, it is true. When John first put that together, I thought he was lying and went and double checked the math multiple times because I'm like, there's no way that that much time is spent doing these things. But there is, and it is actually correct. So let's talk about standardizing our client interactions and what that benefit is to us. One is a predictable client journey, and I have no idea what just happened to my slide. That was weird. Um, hold on one second. Not really sure what that is. Anyway, we really want every client to know what to expect at each stage of the journey and to have that same experience. And what that does is that leads them to feel secure and informed all the way through the process. And when that happens, they are more likely to refer people to you. It's predictable. They know what's going on. You can communicate to them what's going on. And that leads to more security on their part. And they're more likely then to refer their friends to you. Um, and then, of course, transparency and pricing and service models. All of this plays into that. We know we'd really like for everyone to keep their finances private, but let's be honest, that's not really what happens. Somebody comes in and they say, I went to this law firm and I got a will and power of attorney and this stuff, and they did this for me and it was $1,500. And the next person comes in and they go, well, I'm getting all the same things and it's $900. Well, then you end up with people talking out in the community about stuff because they're going to do it. So just standardize it so it's not an issue. Um, what's the difference? You should be able to articulate to people, be able to standardize what those are and explain that in the different uh, offerings that you're giving them. So you can choose to put different things in there, like basic, premium, gold services, stuff like that. But they all need to have defined deliverables and pricing that goes with those. Really helps your firm referrals as well because it's not jumping all over the place. Same thing goes for hourly. Um, I'll do this work for you for this cost, and then someone else, I'm going to quote a different hourly cost, and it's all over the place. Um, People then wonder, why did you charge me more? Or why did you charge me less? You really want to make sure that that kind of stuff is standardized so you don't have that going on in your reputation. That's one that's kind of overlooked times. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're doing a reduced price for a referral from someone and you're doing, or things like that, that's not the same. Um, and with that comes in that if you are offering a discount or something like firms that are offering, that are doing a free consultation, if you meet a certain criteria, they're giving a free consultation. It is very important to state that we charge this for our consultation, but because of this, this, and this, we're waiving that fee. That really sets that stage for people, and then they understand that more. And again, it helps with your reputation out there in the community. It's all about consistency and having a consistent voice of the firm. Standardized communication, emails, templates, text templates. They ensure that all the correspondence has a consistent tone, branding, and professionalism. It enhances your reputation, and it also creates the sense of comfort in clients that they're receiving reliable and consistent information. It doesn't matter who's communicating with them. The more you customize, the more you have to do one of two things. You either make all communication go through one person so it's consistent, all in the same tone. Well, that's difficult to do. Um, or you need to have someone review all the communication before it goes out. Those are really the only two ways to keep it consistent if there's no standardization. Both those things add time and can create other issues along the way. If you need to have an attorney review every email before it goes out, that's adding time. It's adding more and more time that you're not getting paid for. And you can't scale because you can't read faster, approve faster, or write faster. So all of those things come into play. And with standardized communication, you can actually scale from all your templates and things like that, and you can build your firm a lot quicker. So what does this gain us as a firm? Whenever we add standardized processes, we can better track KPIs. Um, Things like time to close cases, time to bill clients, time to receive bills. These all allow for a very clear picture of your operation and what your efficiency is. It's hard to put a KPI in place and hold someone to a KPI standard if every single email they're sending out is customized. How do you set a standard for how many emails they should be sending when all of them are different? Maybe they have more difficult clients, and that all starts to play into excuses, but they're not really excuses. They're actually reasons why their KPI may not be as good this week as it could be. Um, but you can't make a measurable efficiency if there's no standard process for it. Well, you can, but it's not fair. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. Always going to be things that go outside of the standard processes, and those can be easily explained. Like every case is not an exception. And that's really the key point of all of this. 90% is standardized, and maybe there's 10% that fluctuates around. There's that 10% of that person that needs their hand held to fill out their information form. They don't know how to do this, and there's always going to be that 10%. But when you have 90% of it standardized, you can really focus in on that 10% and make their experience just as standard as everyone else with a little more personal touch to them. And then, of course, we run into the issue of bottlenecks. Standardization allows you to identify bottlenecks. So anytime you have a standard process in place, you can really pinpoint where those bottlenecks are and they start to pop out. Without a standardized process in place, those bottlenecks can fluctuate on a day-to-day basis. One day this person may be behind, the next day this person may be behind. Like everything is just moving all of the time. Makes it very difficult to know where you can throw labor at it, where you can help someone if it's just constantly moving. It's a moving target. So then how do you then apply that to KPI drafting? Let's say how many you should draft. We might say, well, it's a complex draft. It takes me an hour to draft that. And the next one may say, this is a complex draft and it takes me 3 hours to draft it. Well, without a standardized drafting process, you can't really judge if the bottleneck is truly a bottleneck or it's an anomaly. Was there something special in those that made it a bottleneck on this particular day? When there's no standard, you have no baseline to base all of that on. You don't know. It just moves all over the place. So putting standardized processes and communications in place allows you to identify where your true bottlenecks are, not just what appears as a bottleneck, but is actually a fluctuation that happens with the customization. They're not different every week or every day, and it's important to know to be able to make improvements. And this really plays into that because if I see a bottleneck somewhere and I really want to focus my improvement around that, and then I get started into improving that, and the next day the bottleneck is somewhere else, and I'm like, well, then why am I doing this? This isn't the improvement isn't a result of what I did. It's just a result of the fluctuation of work. Maybe I should go over there, and then I never finish this one, and it's really difficult to go into continuous refinement. That's what it brings us to. Being able to see what your processes are allows you then to be able to continuously improve those processes. So I had a discussion this week about we're never done. So some of us like to complete things and we like to say we're done. But when you're done, you're done. When you say you're done, you're not moving forward. You've completed it. But if you want your firm to continue to grow and move forward, you can't be done. It is about continuous improvement, and that keeps going, and having processes and standardization in place makes it so you can improve those processes and those standardizations. Not everything needs to be a challenge every day. The challenge moves from getting through the day and getting everything done to improving this process so that every day runs smoother. And that really is a shift that a lot of people take in that conversation I had this week was really good for my soul, because seeing someone make that transition and realize that moving forward in that way is important to her firm for longevity is so encouraging. So we try to teach people that being able to grow and scale without losing that personal touch is really what continuous improvement is about. So there's a myth out there that standardization diminishes the value of your work and your interaction with clients or the client experience. That's a myth. You can foster a culture that embraces efficiency without sacrificing the creative part of your client interactions. 90% of your work can be standardized. That's what the technology is for. 10% of your work is your creative custom work. Those are the exceptions to the rule, the outliers, the clients that need an extra touch. When standardization handles 90% of the routine work, it frees up your time to be able to truly focus on those custom cases that you need to focus on. Once someone makes that shift from understanding that not everything needs to be custom, you can actually standardize a lot of things, and it allows for very quick growth in the firm. But don't jump in and overhaul everything once. Moving to a standardized firm really needs to be incremental, especially if you're starting at ground zero. You don't want to try to do everything at once. And believe me, I'm just as guilty of that as the next person. I'd like to come in and standardize everything and automate everything and do it all at once. But that's not the way to approach it. For one, you're going to throw yourself into chaos, and then it's going to get frustrating, and then you're going to quit. And I mean quit your job, although I've seen that happen. I mean you're going to quit making changes. You're going to go back to the status quo because it's comfortable and it's easy. And that's not what you want to do, because that is not growing and that's not scalable. So you really want to approach this incrementally. And what it does is set you up to incrementally change and continue that change. So you're continually moving forward. Continuous improvement. Anyone? Um, So that's really where we want to go with this, is that you really want to make those efficiency gains in small chunks and recognize those efficiency gains that that standardization brings to your firm and celebrate every win. That is very important. So how do we make that happen? Well, you really want to put a dedicated person in charge of taking ownership of moving towards standardization in the area that you're working with. A lot of times it is part of a multi-department team. And it's listening to each other and knowing what can be improved and standardized and what you need to leave custom. And that takes input from everybody. So it's not just one person, but one person really needs to be the champion of it. Um, all of that works to fostering a culture of continuous improvement in your firm. Your standardization champion is a person who's out there looking at everything that you're doing and saying, can we standardize this? Does this need to be custom every time? And when you're looking at that, it allows you to make those changes and to move forward. Standardization isn't a strategy. It's truly an investment in the future of your firm. By standardizing, you set the foundation that supports all of your sustainable growth, sustainability, continual delivery of client services your clients will appreciate, and refer others to you because of their experience. So stop rewarding the hero, the person that's out there making things complicated, so they need to work harder. And remember, they're not always doing that on consciously. It's just how things have always been done. And build a system where everyone is efficient. And then your firm can grow on that foundation. And as always, you can set up a discovery with us to talk about that. And our website does have the um, automation calculator that can show you time that automation can save you, but that also goes into standardization as well, because those are tied really close together. Okay, I'm gonna pause this recording and we can go and ask some questions.